Welcome to round 3 of the Parenting Roundabout podcast for the week of October 11th. I'm Nicole Erdix, and I'm here with Catherine Haleko.
Hello.
And Terry Morrow.
Hello.
We're moms of teens and young adults, and when it comes to parenting, we've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. But we're still waiting for that day when we'll reach the finish line and have no further need to lay down in a dark room with a wet rag over our eyes worrying about something or other. Wednesday is complaint day here on the Parenting Roundabout, and today we're asking, should we really be teaching our kids of all ages some of the things that other people seem to think are important?
Are we treading on any dangerous ground here, Nicole? Should I be ready to hide under the desk?
I have a lot to say about this. Only because I feel like in my childhood, there were a lot of things that were asked of me that just did not make sense. And I think about it now and I'm, why? Why did, and because, like when we're first parents, especially with our first kids, we obviously have our own view of the way, of doing things. But then there's some instances where we fall back on the way we were raised. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, some of those instances came up. But I don't know, there's a lot that.
So what do you think? What are you thinking of? Give some examples.
Okay. So I'm thinking like, eat your vegetables. Okay, that's just very straightforward, but
eat
all your vegetables. Eat what's on your plate, right? Finish what's on your plate. No, kids have preferences. And those preferences are not just because they decided they don't like it. Those preferences are based on genetics and taste buds and all kinds of things, right?
Sometimes it's because they know you just bought a whole bunch of it and
I mean, I think we need to honor some of those situations when they're, no, I don't want to eat this. The other thing too is, that not to question adults, especially people in authoritative positions, right? Mm-hmm. That I think is very dangerous. Not that I want a child that is, I don't know what's a positive
sassy.
Exactly. But somebody who can think about if that makes sense or not, or if it's reasonable.
Even adults have trouble with that sometimes.
I know. So that's the way we were raised.
Yeah.
The other thing I'm thinking about too is that, asking too many questions is perceived annoying or unacceptable. I think it's good for kids to ask questions. I think it's good for us to question. Those are just kind of some of the things that come to mind, that I feel like we need to change or at least be mindful of. I don't know. Did you teach your kids some of those things, or do you have other things in mind that you would not or purposely did not teach them because it didn't make sense?
I mean, I think some things are kind of arbitrary, right? Like making your bed or, like we had to do little chores like that. And I think like the idea of chores is great, but I think it kind of needs to be connected to something that has a value to the child and the family, right? Like, so, emptying the dishwasher or whatever is helpful because it helps everyone in the family. But if you want your bed to be unmade, I don't care, like it doesn't matter. I mean, maybe it's about establishing productive habits or something. I mean, I know people are like all about if you make your bed, it starts your day, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But
right.
I don't know, if you're a kid and you can't see the relevance, then that seems to make it harder to do. So, but yeah. And I think some of the stuff about like not questioning, just accepting anything that an adult tells you, again, that could be dangerous.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you should do everything I tell you. I know what's right.
Yeah. So often it's an issue of modulation, and that's really difficult because there are times where you need to trust an adult and not ask questions.
Right.
And there are times when you need to. So it's not a black and white thing. You know,
And
if
it's
the teacher
very
says
hard
it's
to
time
teach
for a
something
fire
like
drill,
that.
you don't want to be asking 10 questions about the fire drill. You want to get your little butt out of the room.
Right.
If you're interrupting the class with a question every 2 minutes so that the teacher can't teach, that's a problem. On the other hand, there's people who may mean bad for you, and them you do need to question and not. It's so hard to tell. My kids were so black and white that it was difficult to provide that modulation. I think that's true for a lot of kids. That do this sometimes, but not other times. It was super difficult. So we would tend to probably go one way or the other. One thing I think is useful, though, is before you teach your child something, ask if you could do that. If you're going to make your kid eat a food they don't like, you darn well better eat foods you don't like and model that.
Right.
If you're going to tell your kid never ask questions, you better not be doing that, you know? And it's with my son had sensory integration problems, and that would make it difficult for him to wear certain clothes and eat certain foods and sit still and do stuff. And people would say, you know, you have to make the kid do these things. You have to make them sit still. You have to make them wear what you want them to wear. That, you know, don't give into that. But you know, I don't wear clothes that are uncomfortable to me. If I have a shirt with too high a collar, I don't wear that shirt. If I have a food I don't like the feel of it in my mouth, I don't eat that food. So you can't make your kid do it.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to do it themselves. And the same thing with chores. Do you make your bed every morning? If you don't, clearly it's not that important. Maybe don't make your kid do it. But
yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. It's hard though, because there are judgy people in the world who will give you bleep for it. And then you just sometimes don't really feel like engaging. Oh, just do what she says. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah. I feel like in my generation, there was still that kind of, at least the way I was parented, and it seemed that a lot of people I know were parented this way, that kids were still kind of seen and not heard in a way. Right. So we didn't question, we just, if an adult told us to do it, then we were expected to do it. Right.
Right.
And
as a bratty only child, I pretty much did whatever I wanted to.
And then Catherine had very progressive parents. So I feel like I don't have an accurate sample of the population here. So yeah, I feel like, I think if you were to talk to a lot of people in the same age range.
Well, did you, with your children, not teach those things? Or are you coming to this awareness later on and wishing you had done things differently?
I think it's interesting because my husband was raised to not like question everything else, but just to kind of like, does that make sense? Right. And so when we were raising our kids when they were younger, he would often he would say, well, why are they doing that? And I'd be, well, because so-and-so said that was a good idea. He's like, is it really just because he's the coach? Is it really a good idea?
Right.
Right. Like, let's think about this. Yeah. Does it make sense? Is it appropriate? Just because it's always been done that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, there were times, thankfully, thanks to my husband, that my kids were given the opportunity to analyze the situation. Of course, they were older. But yeah.
Yeah. You do want to modulate it as they get older, as they're able to see more shades of gray of things and be more flexible in their behavior. Not my kids specifically, because they still aren't. But I don't know. Yeah. It's
challenge. And with the vegetable things.
Good, but vegetables. Yeah. You're going to take a strong stand on that.
I did not stand my ground with vegetables. My kids pretty much led the way with that. I exposed them to it. I gave them, they had to have at least one vegetable with their meal. That was my criterion. That was my rule. But outside of that, if they didn't want to eat the broccoli, they didn't have to eat the broccoli.
Yeah. It's fortunate that my kids really don't resist that much in food, and it's easy to accommodate them without feeling like I'm giving in. But holy cow, I remember, I might have discussed this here before. One time we took my nephew to a museum and we were having lunch, and he had picked something out he wanted for lunch, and then he would not eat it. And I decided that this was the hill I was going to die on. And holy cow, did I die. I died big time.
Oh,
He just would not eat it. And he knew that given the strength of his jaws, he had the upper hand, and I probably was not going to, wrestle him to the floor and force it down his gullet.
There was no way.
And he knew that. And he just, just kept saying, nope, 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 nope. And so that's the only time I ever really tried super hard. Like, gall darn it, I'm going to break this kid. I'm going to make him eat that hot dog. But
wow.
I lost humiliatingly. So apparently his parents taught him, do not do what adults say. It's fine.
Actually, I'm kind of impressed. He stood his ground.
Yeah, he really did. And it made me crazy. And I think at some point I must have just come to the awareness of, what am I doing? Who the heck cares? But it's just, he had specifically chosen a particular thing to eat. And then just seemingly just to be a pain in the butt, he refused.
He did not want to eat it.
Yes. Just because I probably said something like, until you eat that, we can't go look at the rest of the museum. I threw down the gauntlet and he.
Oh, I see.
We'll see about that, old lady. I don't really like this museum. So we should teach parents, you never want to get in that fight. You're always going to lose that fight.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like this whole choosing your battles thing is something important. That we, as our generations of parents, are much more likely to do than than our own parents or grandparents were, I guess, because for them it was just their way or the highway, right? And there were no battles because the kids would just not engage. So I guess that's the trade-off that you have to make.
Yeah. Yay. Raising independent kids who don't
That's right.
told. Yay. We have a timeout on that right now because I need you to do this. Don't go back to that other thing.
Right. Then we'll return to our progressive ways, our
doesn't apply
authoritative, not authoritarian ways.
Don't listen to any other adults.
Well, we're not going to tell you, the listener, what to do, but you can, if you'd like, listen to our podcast every day. Tune in tomorrow when we'll obsess about how to evaluate schools. And then on Friday to see what we've come up with for our Roundabout Roundup picks this week. Find all our episodes at parentingroundabout.com and talk back in the comments there, on our Facebook page, or on Twitter, where you'll find us at Roundabout Choose.